Hello guys, and welcome back to another episode of Not Enough Glue. I finally got the title. Anyway, this time joined by three of my fellow friends, Spice, Royal, and Dizzy.
Hello, everyone. You may not know me, but I go by the name Red Splotch on YouTube. I'm not really that big on YouTube.
Hi, I'm Royal. I did a reading of Godzilla Replay everyone likes for some reason. I don't know why.
I'm Mega Dizzy, owner of the channel Mega Dizzy, and also owner of the channel entirely focused for NES Godzilla fan stories, Transcendence Team. I also created Chaos Pasta, and one thing I'm known for is that I'm currently in the middle of the ocean. Uh-oh, I don't know how to swim.
We are currently targeting a nuclear launch at your location. It will all be over soon.
Oh, sweet.
You will soon mutate into a kaiju and fight for us.
You will turn into a giant being, or better yet, you'll just be put in a freaking suit, and then you'll become one.
At least I can swim.
Man, the suit moment.
You're gonna get surgically turned into one. So, this is about the original pasta, written in 2011, red, elephant, gun, penis, that stuff, and the sequel, Replay.
We don't talk about Not Barragon in this house. We don't discuss him. He's not welcome here.
Yes, he is. I love Not Barragon.
I call
He's my best friend.
I call the freaking thing that you give the freaking elephant thing. I call it the cock and gun.
I am going to end you. I am changing the coordinates of the nuclear launch. You are not safe.
Yeah, you're gonna become the kaiju now, Spice.
I'm not like I give a crap.
You're gonna become the man in the suit.
I thought being hit by a nuke would turn me into a giant monster. My limbs are turning into soup.
I'm becoming Spaghetti Man. Oh no.
Mom spaghetti.
Mom spaghetti,
God. It's like that image where it's a steam engine with all the pipes everywhere, except that's just a person. But without any further ado, I guess to begin the topic, how did you guys first find the original NES Godzilla pasta?
I think I first found it through Goji's reading.
All right, basically, there was this one YouTuber I watched who's known for making YouTube poops. I can't remember his name, but I do remember he had a series where he would also read various creepypastas, and NES Godzilla was in there. And initially, I think I remember watching it before, but didn't find it that interesting. But upon rewatching it that night, I eventually found the rest of it in Goji 73, and from there, my life pretty much went downhill.
I think I was watching this YouTuber named Fish Stick on a Stick reviews, where he was reviewing pastas, and it's like NES Godzilla. I'm like, oh, okay, gotta watch this. And it was so weird and captivating to me. And then that's where I also got introduced to the film Tusk when he made the Magma is Justin Long joke, so yeah.
I don't know what Tusk is, and I think I don't want to know.
Yeah, you're lucky you got spared from the virus.
The virus?
Virus is coming for you.
The fog is coming.
The fog is coming. You need to run.
You need to run.
The red mist is coming.
Oh, don't bring up that pasta.
What pasta?
Red mist. It's the Squidward suicide.
Oh, right, that thing.
Yeah.
That thing's funny to me because I don't mean to get off topic, but that creepypasta is so funny to me because I always thought it was a noose because that's the one Squidward clip that used, but no, he busts out the 12 gauge. Why is it so extreme like that?
He Baja blasts his brains out.
Yeah.
Not the Baja Blast.
He went Doom Eternal on himself.
You know that one F&F mod that's Mistful Crimson Morning? And it ends with Squidward just blowing his brains out and just slumping to the ground, and it's like, oh my god, it's such a sudden turn.
The show actually referenced Squidward's suicide in the episode.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they actually did.
That was crazy.
And then they took the reference out.
Yeah, because kids got scared by it.
They're cowards. A lot of them.
Yeah, but it still exists. And it's actually kind of funny that the mod of the creators of the Mistful SpongeBob Creepypasta mod, they literally add that canon red mist word.
I'm still waiting for a good Happy Happy mod.
That reminds me of, to kind of bring it back to topic, about how they actually made a NES Godzilla like figure.
Oh yeah, that's right.
It's just a repaint of like a normal one, but with blue.
It
Yeah,
is kind of dope, honestly.
and he's retro. I like the red eyes though.
That is crazy.
Human, why are you so retro?
Why are you so retro?
I think I didn't get to say like my part, like how I know. Yeah.
Oh wait, yeah. How are you introduced?
Sorry about that.
Well, I never really looked into it fully, but I knew about it from a top tier list of basically many creepypasta characters, and the guy who was talking about the creepypasta characters was talking about Red.
Yeah, Red's a menace.
Bro is like, he wakes up extra early to be a hater, bro.
Yeah.
I remember Fish Stick on a Stick made this comment in his review where he looks like he's in constant agony.
The entirety of Zenith is powered by his hatred, and after dying, it immediately turned into ash.
Is that canon?
It probably is. No, but it probably is. I reject your reality and substitute it with my own.
You know, there's a theory. So in the sequel, the bosses are different, where they represent the seven deadly sins.
Yeah.
One of the chapters confirmed that they're actually invasive species that corrupted the worlds they're in.
Yeah.
There's a theory that Red is the same thing, where he's like a sin thing, where he corrupted the entire planet.
I don't think he's a sin thing, but I think he is native to Zenith, because Zenith is messed up, like just all over the place.
Yeah.
He made it himself.
It's, oh my lord, it's crazy. From frickin' hung alien mothers to frickin' like hyper realistic meat.
I kind of felt that he's just like the top dog on Zenith.
There was even in the Red Temple level, there was like statues dedicated to him. At least some religious symbionts.
Yeah, and another monster, which was like a reference to one of Cosby's other things.
My interpretation of Zenith was that it is hell in a sense, but it's not like literal hell where it goes to punish sinners. It's basically like where Red usually takes his victims that he's defeated. He basically like subjects them to undergoing,
I don't
know, maybe they're assimilated into the meat level. Maybe they're fed to firebrands, the big guy from the stage that literally is hell. And in the case of the recycler kaiju, I don't know, they get recycled.
There's a theory that Solomon, one of the playable monsters that actually has a history with Red, that he is actually a previous victim that was killed by him, and he's trapped in the cartridge like Melissa.
He's not in the cartridge, just in his world. They're not a part of the cartridge. They're just like, the cartridge just creates like a conduit into other worlds, and the monsters you play as are just like the player's way of affecting the other worlds, like an avatar of sorts.
It's like Ultraman. Or something like that. I don't know.
You
never
mean
watched
Gridman?
the show.
You mean Gridman?
I don't know.
That sounds more like Gridman.
Probably.
Could you imagine if there was like an iteration of the cartridge where it was the Bride of Godzilla, like the time that canceled film? You just play as a woman.
I
oh my god! Now, if I ever make that like fan made prequel thing, I'm putting Bride of Godzilla in there.
I was actually gonna. I think I was actually gonna put Bride of Godzilla into Chaos Pasta, but I got too lazy, and I didn't do it.
You should have just put a JPEG in there, like a compressed JPEG of a Japanese woman.
Yeah, and also Godzilla was dead, so at least he doesn't have to pay child support or whatever.
Oh my god!
In my series, I might have it so that like the main character, she sees Bride of Godzilla and just gets up and walks away for a moment, just like, why?
She just, that's just the end of it. She decides just to box it up, send it over.
That's when the story just ends with Bride of Godzilla jump scare.
Oh man!
Oh no, woman!
Female.
Why fight back,
woman?
But so the interesting thing about the pasta is how much life it actually brought to the original Godzilla NES Monster of Monsters.
Because I think, if I will chime in, I think upon playing the original game, there's something about it that does feel empty that I think the pasta like benefits from. Because like, I mean, it's not uncommon for there to be like no dialogue in like old NES games, because you know that's how it was sometimes. But like, there's not really a lot of talking. There's not really like a human side to it. You're just constantly bombarded with monsters, and you always get like a view of space. Or sometimes in the boss fights, you don't even get that at all. You're just in a black void. It's not like terrifying, but I do think to a degree there's a sort of like eeriness that I think the pasta really helped bring to life.
Yeah. And also, like, I think it also benefits from the fact that the game is kind of a blank slate. Like, I think Carl put it best. It's fun at first, but it gets old pretty quick because it's just kind of the same thing over and over without much in the way of, like, meaningful innovation or meaningfully different obstacles. Like,
and I think
I think a game like that could have benefited from like the Wario school of game design, where like you always have those abilities throughout the entire game. You don't get anything new, but the way you use those abilities is changed as the game introduces new obstacles. And I think that the game that Carl is playing is really doing that, doing a lot with that, because no matter what section he's in or how the controls change, Godzilla and Rodan always have the same ability set. It's just how they interact with those abilities is changed.
It's also in space, which I think on its own, I think that leaves the door open to a lot of versatility. You're hopping from planet to planet.
Yeah, but it doesn't really explore that to any meaningful degree. The original game, I mean.
Yeah. It's just so alien.
Yeah.
I guess the kind of vibe. It's like if you only had one friend you knew at a party. That's the kind of feeling, like as a casual person and a fan of Godzilla you're playing as. And even the kaiju that you're fighting, the Loch Ness Monster, of rat.
It is weird. Like, I understand that this was definitely in a time where Toho did not really have a defined set of kaiju, but it is really weird looking back on it how many, like, non-Godzilla kaiju there are. Like, Gazora and Mogira. Well, Mogira was a Godzilla monster, but he was in the Mysterians before.
Yeah.
I think Manda counts. I actually don't remember if Manda was in a Godzilla
if I remember correctly, I think that there was this kind of unspoken rule in the Showa era that any like monster movies that Toho made were set in the Godzilla universe. So I remember Zone Fighter appeared in some Godzilla stuff, and he went up against King Ghidorah in his own series a few times.
Yeah.
An assumed part of the Showa era, which Monsters is based on, that all the monster movies they made in that time are, you know, in the Godzilla universe. Like, Rodan originated from an original movie, Mothra originated from an original movie, but they got rolled into the Godzilla cast later on.
Yeah.
And Guylas got his ass kicked from the beginning, though, so I'm so sad that he couldn't.
Yeah, he got treated like a dog.
Yeah.
It's just alien.
It feels really weird that they seem so adverse to, like, having Godzilla and Anguirus share a movie again. Because, like, Anguirus was the first opponent that ever fought Godzilla.
The thing is, Godzilla is mostly now known for fighting things, especially with the Monsterverse. So, like, it's like...
Yeah, which, like, isn't a bad thing, because, like, it gives Godzilla a chance to struggle in some meaningful way.
Yeah, the first time he's ever had that side explored of him. I guess Rise Again was so bad that they never wanted to do that ever again with Anguirus. It's just traumatized them.
Yeah.
I would like to say to see Anguirus come back, because there was a skeleton of him in King of the Monsters, so he exists in the Monsterverse, or at least did at one point.
I hope they bring him back and he's green.
He's gonna be the final boss.
Just make him green.
That would be very funny.
Green.
That's the subtle reference. They're not gonna license red. They're just gonna make him green, like in the beta version.
Yeah.
That's something interesting about the fact that in the pasta, one of the new playable monsters is literally a monster that was intended to be in the game originally, but was scrapped.
Yeah,
in both series. Yeah, in both series, because Anguirus was planned, and then Rodan was planned, and neither of them made it in.
And apparently Cosby, I might need to check again, but from what I remember, Cosby actually didn't know they were unused characters. I mean, I at least know he didn't know that Anguirus was unused.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Anguirus being unused was discovered after the NES Godzilla Creepypasta came out.
No, the pasta is true. The game really is personalized.
Yeah.
But the thing
that was real ass plot twist.
Yeah. I guess we can talk about the worlds now.
Okay.
I think, honestly, because both the original and the sequel are good in their own ways. Because the thing is that in each pastas, the game forms itself around the main antagonist, like Zachary, where he has deep-seated trauma, and there's even a little bit of, like, longing for the good old days where he gets a new NES system and a bunch of old games where he explains how it's like his comfort device. It feels like an older game. there's no monsters that talk within the original pasta, and a lot of the enemies seem like stuff from like old weird Atari, like early NES games, you know. Stuff like the weird deer creatures from Entropy. Like they wouldn't feel out of place if you put them into like an alien simulator game on some other NES title.
Something I find kind of interesting is that Carl's game is leaning into being a platformer faster than Zach's game did. Carl's mentioned he's good at platformers, I believe. So maybe that's why?
Yeah.
I don't know. Something to that.
I imagine the game does get weirder depending on your knowledge of Godzilla. I mean, not to say Zach's playthrough wasn't weird, because it very much was, but I think it's definitely more prone to get stranger the less you know about Godzilla, is my headcanon.
Yeah.
Yep.
I will say, Carl did mention he's more of like a casual fan. He knows like the famous monsters, like, you know, Rodan, Mothra, and Geras, but like most of it goes over his head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially how even in replay there was like already some Godzilla monsters. Like there was even the re-sprite of Titanosaurus.
Yeah, Titanosaurus showed up. He didn't recognize Zilla when he showed up on like one screen.
I could never forget him.
I think that Titanosaurus sprite was the same sprite that's going to be used in the game adaptation.
Yeah, I think it was.
I'm pretty sure it was the same sprite. I'm pretty sure it was the same one.
Yeah.
It was one of, I think there was an amount of sprites Cosby made for the game before leaving the team, and that Titanosaurus sprite is one of them.
Hold on, actually, let me fact check this. Hold on a second. So if I go to NES Godzilla Creepypasta. Okay,
Real quick,
so it was.
speaking of Zilla, I actually remember there's this neat theory people have, and it's probably unintentional, but I think Zilla appears in Amorphous, which is the world themed around envy, and a lot of people think that Zilla was placed there because it wants to be him.
Yeah, he envies the real G. Yeah, I think I've heard that also.
I think part of it is also that Zilla is much more aquatic leaning than standard Godzilla. Dude literally eats fish, and
That's a lot of fish.
and Amorphous was a water world. So
Yeah, that's a lot of fish.
shut up.
It's a lot of fish. Shut up.
Okay, so I'm comparing side by side. No, it's not the same sprite. It is more advanced. Maybe you're right.
That's cool.
It is a new sprite, more detailed, and it just looks better.
If I could, somewhat trying to retrack here onto the original NGC's worlds, I do want to point something out that's interesting to me about Pathos in Trance. So, from what I remember, the main story of NGC's development is that initially it was not meant to be a popular thing. Well, typically most things aren't really made for popularity, but at the beginning, I think Cosby made the creepypasta as just something to share with his friends, like, hey guys, check out this thing I'm making. And you can definitely tell, Pathos and Trance. After Trance, probably where the pasta took off more, it's normal for the first two worlds to be minimalistic. I mean, Trance even reuses assets from Pathos. I just find it interesting to see how these worlds go from being just simplistic little sillies to the more complex and even stranger stuff later on, but that's just a theory.
Replay is obviously based around the Seven Deadly Sins. The original one has more ominous human conditions. Pathos is depression. The worlds are blue and lonely, and Biollante has a depressing backstory. Trance is weird and hypnotic stuff.
Yeah. It must have gotten even sadder when it found out that Zach didn't play through the Blue Jungle level.
That's one thing about Replay I think this one's excelled at. It's more cryptic because you have to read between the lines in certain details. I feel like the gameplay really alters with dementia. I don't think it was actually forgetting, but symbolically forgetting what the original was like with introducing water, platformer, and new monster.
Yeah.
You know?
And I do think there's something to be said there about the Not monsters. And that's not to say Not Varen wasn't already very different from Varen, but I think it's here that the Not monsters really start to feel very different and distinct from the original monsters. Not Mogira and Not Gazora. They're eerie designs. They're good, but they are pretty close to the original. Not Gazora is just a big tentacle monster, and Not Mogira is a machine.
He's a Pascagoula alien.
A Pascagoula.
No, Goomba.
Turn into a Pesca Goomba!
Oh, yeah.
I really do like Not Gigan's design, though. Actually, both of the Dementia Not monsters are good.
Not Gigan has the most closest semblance to the original monster, with like how his belly has teeth while Gigan has like the stomach saw, the claws on his limbs, as well as being headless, which I think there was a scene in some movie where Gigan chopped his head off by accident.
Yeah, he's a headless chicken.
Yeah. Because it's like with dementia, like the board of dementia, it's forgetting the very foundations of the game. Just like how with not Gigan, it's only remembering the very foundation of his design. Like with the claws on his arms and his stomach saw, everything else is forgotten.
In Dementia, it also emphasizes how they look eerier than the previous Not monsters. Because, like,
Oh, absolutely.
Not Baragon, like, completely towers over you and can freeze you in place. And as funny as the abdomen gun is,
he literally forces the like life meter bit of the screen move up just to make room for him.
Yeah.
He is literally twice Godzilla's height.
Yep.
He's like 100 meters tall. That's horrible.
Ugh.
Ugh. So, because the thing is, like, okay, I know this is like as a pasta, you can read it, but like, defend the shoes of Zachary. He's first playing this. The shock of how big Baragon is, like, not Baragon is, let alone like other levels.
Once again, I think the Dementia monsters really showcase an eerie shift because, like, Not Gigan also has like a similarly off-color intro compared to what's in game, like how the piranha initially goes on screen only for Not Gigan to cut it up. That's really weird, but I also really enjoy it.
I think it's like the game is beginning to show that he can't even trust the normal stuff. Like, he can't even trust that the fights are going to be normal anymore.
Yeah, I guess now that you mentioned that, it also, with the air of untrustworthiness, Zach mentioned earlier in the game how he said that the piranha was a sane enemy. Like, it looked like it would actually be part of a normal game, only for the game later on to use it for something more off-color and unexpected.
I stacked Godzilla on top of Godzilla next to Not Baragon. Not Baragon is slightly taller.
Yep.
Yeah.
Dang.
Just by a few pixels. He's a few pixels taller. I want to say like 3 or 4.
Yeah. If I could actually, like, at least dispel the eeriness real quick, I do have this fun fact I learned about Not Baragon's pissing on the moon gun. Originally, it was actually just going to come out of his chest, but Cosby realized, oh wait, that barely even lines up with Godzilla. So he moved it down more and more and more until, oh well, that's his penis. So he just went with that.
And now he's got to live with the consequences of that.
Yep. I wouldn't live without it. I would have stopped reading. Yeah.
It's good that we brought up dementia, because, like, the Blue Temple level.
Oh yeah, the Unforgiving Cold. There's a lot of iconic levels, but I think that's, aside from the run stage, I think that's the NES Godzilla level.
Yeah, that's my second favorite level, just of how mysterious and creepy it is. I know Replay really honed in on this. This is the part where it kinda takes root, especially in the next world, Entropy. It's like this is a real world. When I think of the original Creepypasta, all of these worlds are broken, and they're utterly abandoned. It's like this religious temple where it's like these mysterious people built this gigantic temple. You gotta keep in mind, it's bigger than Godzilla.
Yeah.
Could you imagine how giant a human would be in there?
Oh god.
And the fact that it's this haunting choir, when he says, I feel like I'm getting closer to something unspeakably evil, and that went on for 7 minutes. Because what other levels are going to end up being like that?
Not to mention, there's also where it foreshadows that even if it is just a game, it's not entirely just a game. Like how Zach mentioned, this game has the power to make the player feel something. I like that.
Yeah.
To circle back to Not Baragon's height, because I've been quiet this whole time because I've been like calculating things, like, you know, comparing pixel sizes and dividing stuff. If we assume that Monster of Monsters Godzilla is 50 meters, since it's based on Showa Godzilla, then that would mean that Not Baragon is 107 meters tall.
Wow.
That would be a giant Gatling dog.
Rounded down.
That's one big elephant.
Literally over twice Godzilla's height. I hate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I guess we can go ahead and move on to entropy.
Yeah, we
All
can
right,
move on to
I'm gonna
entropy.
say it right now. I'm gonna say it right now. This is my favorite world in the entire creepypasta,
Yeah,
and
me too.
that is absolutely a hill I am willing to be died and buried on.
I love entropy so much because the game was testing him with Unforgiving Cold, the temple level. So now it's like poking at him some more.
Yeah,
I know that I mentioned how these worlds feel like actual worlds of like societies that are long gone. Entropy feels like a whole story almost.
yeah.
Yeah, like it has a
Yeah,
whole arc to it.
yeah, the forest stage being first, where you see the deer, then to the toxic waste level, where you see that these deer also happen to be drinking out of this toxic sludge, as well as the fact there's actual like mini boss at the end that, which is basically an amalgamation of all this horrible sludge and pollution. And then you get into the winter forest. It actually might be my favorite level in the story, where it seems peaceful at first, but then you see multiple deer corpses collapsed with snow on them, and then you see all those snow rappers, snow raptors.
Bunch of British rappers.
I'm in the thick of it, everybody.
I was so raptors, which start not only clawing at whatever they can find, start clawing at each other. Like one of the enemies in the stage has its eye gouged out. It's so good.
It's so visceral.
It's so good. Oh,
I like to imagine, like, because, okay, I know this is going to make people sad, but you guys remember Little Big Planet?
Oh yeah, Little Big
yeah.
Planet. That was some nostalgic shit.
So I remember, you know that one crocodile level
Mhm.
in the savannah theme?
Yeah.
I remember, I don't know why I would do this when I was little. I would go to the end of the stage and then travel back to where that big alligator was eating all the buffalo. And there would be a point to where it would break, like the head would like fall off or something. It was just continuing to do that. Like, when we leave each world, they're still there, just wiltering. And I feel that a lot with entropy, where it's like, you know, because I know in the sequel it says it's another realm. Like,
Yeah.
even without Godzilla being there, that toxic level is still destroying everything. The abandoned
It
lab.
makes you wonder what happened, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like it feels.
It's kind of like the Dark Souls thing where like you weren't around to see what happened to this world that made it so fucked up. You're here in the aftermath and you're just having to deal with it. Like you can't do anything to change what happened here. This world is gone. You can't do anything.
It's kind of like that feeling you get when you study like ancient societies and all you have is like the leftovers, like crumbling buildings and stuff. I love kind of like creating stories in my head. I feel like entropy tells a story. The term entropy, depending on which definition you use, it's the breaking down of systems. It's where giant things will become smaller, you know, just as giant societies will eventually go to ruin. And I feel like the story behind entropy is where no matter what, nature will clap back. With the forest, it shows nature in harmony.
Yeah.
And then human beings come and destroy nature with the toxic waste stuff. Because if you look closely at some of the enemies, like the weird orange and green blobs, if you look closely, they vaguely look like humans. Like you can see like human legs and stuff.
Yeah.
Let me take a look actually. So, entropy, NES, Godzilla. That reminds me, hold on. Entropy meaning lack of order or predictability, gradual decline into disorder, which does fit with the theme of the world.
Yeah.
Like, kind of like being after some kind of like wipeout to whatever intelligent species existed there, and now it's just the animals picking up the pieces.
Not to mention the gold temple, which has like the machine that like puts this creature into a machine that turns it into a gold version. The lights are on, but nobody's home.
It makes me imagine that it's actually human civilization moving inside. Because I feel like this is underground.
Yeah.
They go underground. They worship this materialistic gold. That's why they want that creature to be gold. In the Shadow Temple, it's like abandoned. And now it's overrun by like hell demons. It's really interesting the fact that those are actually from Zenith.
Yeah, I imagine.
You know?
I know this is like the easy way to do it, but I feel like to a degree, Red basically had a hand in making sure all of these planets were like picked clean and would like fall apart.
Yeah.
Of course, maybe he didn't destroy the whole thing. I also imagine that he only killed whoever he felt like killing, knowing that the rest of the planet would destroy itself or something like that.
It's like in the video game adaptation that the canceled one by Irene. If you look at the cave levels, there's paintings that kind of imply lore where Red invaded the civilization, killed the leader, and basically forced them to like bow down to him. That's where there's baskets and bones and stuff.
Yeah, it's like, I think the implication is that the reason Pathos is so empty is because Red and Zenith just invaded. I think the red moon is implied to be Zenith in the FNF mod.
Yeah, I wanted to say, like, real quick, that basically gives me an idea that after Red got the creatures to bow down to him, he just left.
Yeah.
He knew they'd expect for him to come back, but he never did.
There's a song called What That Never Was, and yeah, our leader's gone. Now it's just us by ourselves.
Yep. Also, we'll get to the Moon Beast later, but skipping ahead a bit to part 2, I think there's also like the Indigo Cliff stage, where it has those like enemies with a bunch of holes in their faces that willingly let themselves die. And that sort of implies to me that living on their planet has become so miserable that they actively trying to escape it in the only way possible.
Just to die.
Yep.
I feel like, I just saw this just now, what if that's actually the forest, like, millennia later? It's been so polluted, it's just islands, it's just rock now.
Also,
yeah.
I feel like something people don't talk about a lot when we talk about entropy is the only playable monster there is Mothra, and Mothra is repeatedly said to be like, the most benevolent and compassionate of the monsters.
And she represents life.
And she's having to wander through a world she can't do anything about, because whatever catastrophe tore this world apart happened well before she even knew the world existed. And deal with the fact that she can't do anything about it. This world is going to die, and there's nothing she can do to save it.
Yeah, and it's like much bigger. I imagine this is millions of times bigger than Earth itself.
Yep. It's here that I want to bring up not Mechagodzilla, who I think is also a contender for my favorite not monster design, because I think he's the most surreal. Not Varen's weird too, but I feel like he's just weird for the sake of it. Mechagodzilla, I think, by far feels the strangest and the most alien, I suppose.
Part of me wonders, let me look at the not monsters on Dementia again.
And I feel like it was all hinted at with the time level at the start, showing that societies rise and fall.
Why did I say Dementia? I meant entropy. We're talking about entropy. I'm so stupid. Sorry. So let's see. So yeah.
One thing I'm
it's entirely possible that. Sorry, you go first.
Sorry,
okay.
I just noticed that in. Oh, this is a mess. I just noticed real quick. I just noticed the run stage, despite being a maze, does not have the maze tiles. It has like a red version of the orange caves tiles. So
meat tunnel.
What I think is like maybe what happened was the humans in the Gold Labyrinth dug so deep they actually reached Zenith.
Ooh.
And then that's where the shadow monsters came out, destroyed the maze.
Yep.
I imagine these are planets, right? Zenith has that meat level. It just overran and utterly corrupted the shadow labyrinth.
Yeah, Zenith is basically, as I see it, a structural black hole. The only thing it's capable of doing is destroying other planets, but it does it really slowly from the inside.
Maybe.
That's the name entropy.
Zenith kind of represents each planet. Like each level, like the temple. I guess I'll talk about this more when we get to Zenith, but we should talk about the big caveat of entropy.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. So Melissa.
The elephant in the room, and we're not talking about not Baragon.
Yeah. Anyway, time to make a confession, and considering how much random bullshit I pull at Chaos Pasta, I'm gonna say that I actually did not really have a problem with Melissa. To a degree, I don't know. It was just like, oh, okay. I mean, why not have it so that Red not only ruins what's inside the game, but will also go out of his way to go outside the game. The call is coming from inside the house to kill.
He's in the walls. He's in the goddamn
walls. He's in the goddamn wall stage.
Red is in your walls.
I mean,
he's eating the walls.
In Pathos. Wait a minute, in the run stage of Pathos, he mentioned that he heard a noise outside his room and turned back to see if something fell.
Imagine if that was just Red cheating.
Yeah. Acacius gave him a big ol' stern talking to for that. No, no, sir. You can't do that.
No, no,
That's
no.
cheating.
No, no, no.
Play by the rules, nerd. Can't break the rules.
He's like a Mexican grandma with a slipper, just beats the crap
Yeah.
out of him.
He, like, comes in with a finger wag, or I guess blade wag, or whatever.
Acacius gets the belt.
Anyway, Moonbeast good. Me like Moonbeast. Moonbeast creepy. Kind of weird that it only has one screenshot of its fight, but it's a good design, I suppose.
If I remember correctly, Zach explained the lack of screenshots, basically saying the fight was just really intense, so he probably didn't have any opportunities to screenshot.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think someone brought this up, that the moon beast possibly represents Melissa, because A, it's the moon. She stared at the moon when she died. A humanoid cracks out, falls into water. The moon beast has a weird, like, fur thing around its neck. It's kind of hard to see. It looks like it's decapitated, just like how, when she got ran over, like, the truck ran over her neck.
The wheels.
Probably would have like separated her head from her body, yeah.
Red's latest art project.
Shut up! Zachary, do you like my art project? I spent 10 hours.
Oh my god.
Oh man.
But and also the fact that right after that level, the game is pushing him even more with showing like creepy staring stuff.
Yeah. Also, I remember what I was going to say. If we're going with the idea that Entropy was a world that just kind of fell into industrialization and self-destructed, maybe Mechagodzilla was intended to be some kind of war machine.
Oh yeah.
Right now.
Or rather, not Mechagodzilla. Yeah, it's with how not Mechagodzilla was heavily mechanized and was armed, and even probably has a bit of psychological warfare aspect to it with the creepy face. So, like, you see that thing marching over the horizon towards you, you're gonna freak out, dude.
You bringing that up is interesting to me with the guise of Godzilla. And I know this is a very obvious thing to say, but I guess it's like a sort of symbolism thing where it poses itself as a symbol of heroism and bravery, but underneath that shell is just a horrifying machine that is only designed to kill.
You know, I just thought about this just now. You know how I kind of pulled out of my butt about how they found Zenith within the labyrinth?
Yeah.
So it's an interesting detail that Mechagodzilla starts out as Mechagodzilla before turning into not Mechagodzilla. Could you imagine if, like, he actually was a Mechagodzilla until when they found Zenith, Red took him and reformatted him?
Oh.
That would be interesting.
Yeah. It's sort of implied that Red is doing this corruption, where in the first two worlds, when Gazora gets like obliterated and Mogira as well, I imagine that's Red doing that, and it's like a very painful process for the two of them. So I imagine that just then Red decided to reformat him and turn him into that, because Red can do that to himself, so why can't he do that to other things?
That's true.
One thing I find interesting is that Ghidorah actually maybe I should talk about that when we get to Zenith.
Yeah. But
again, is there really anything else to cover on Entropy?
I think
I guess I don't know. It's the best planet.
Time Warp's good, but like there's not really much to say about it. It's just time. Collect my clocks or stuff. But I'm comfortable with moving on to Exodus because I got some thoughts about it.
Okay, that's another one. I keep on calling it Exodus because it sounds like the Bible book.
It's okay. It is actually apparently meant to call that, but it was a typo. So, firstly, I got some pros and cons with Entropy, but before I talk about any of them, I want to say that I still really like this planet for multiple reasons. One of them being Solomon. I love Solomon. I love his design. I love that still the best 1973 screen and how Cosby basically just made it without any meaning in mind, but knowing that it would convey a certain amount of personality for Solomon without using any dialogue. That's really clever. And I think a lot of the enemy designs in this world look pretty cool. And also the Chimera. I love the Chimera because I usually think like amalgamation boss fights can really just sometimes look incongruent or feels like it's just smashing things together for the sake of it. But the fact that the Chimera actually has like a theme to it with it being like a sort of a shogun, that's so cool. I love it.
Yeah, the Chimera is awesome.
Yeah. Also, quickly, I want to mention Mr. Fawcett. Love Mr. Fawcett, my favorite TV screen creature. I do think Exodus is lacking in a bit of the eeriness of entropy. And that's not to say that there isn't any at all. Like, I do think theme that permeates about it. And also, I hate to say this, but I really dislike the totem pole stage because it feels like there should be a lot more to it. Like, there's no enemies, it's just a bunch of totem poles. And I get it. Cosby's trying to do the unforgiving cold and, the Blue Mountain stages, but it's not the same. It feels like there actually should be something to this level, but there isn't. It's just there.
If I could offer a counterpoint, something I notice about Exodus is that it seems spiritual in a lot of ways. So I feel like it's almost
I was going to mention
I feel like
that.
it's almost meant to be like a light counterpart to Zenith.
Yeah, I suppose that makes sense. That definitely would check out with the White Temple.
Yeah.
Honestly, if you place the totem pole level after the quiz level,
yeah,
it's like, oh my god, there's a bunch of faces. After face says, will you miss me? And then after the totem level, you do the White Temple. It's like a religious aspect of face passing on, like, symbolically.
Oh yeah.
Cause I remember I made a whole video, like, basically rewriting the pasta, how I would rewrite it. Basically, what I did was crank up the religious aspect to a T. Cause I'm thinking entropy is like the life, Exodus, cause it even was supposed to be Exodus, as in the Bible. Religion, where that's the fear of death, and then Zenith is death itself.
Yeah.
Subsequent afterlife.
I do understand having Exodus as a sort of calm before the storm type of deal, and having it be more of a fear of death kind of thing. I do like that.
I think, honestly...
Which reminds me, I forgot to talk about Face. I mean, I miss him enough. I honestly haven't thought about him that much. Maybe it's just a taste thing, but I don't really remember all that much of Face. He's not bad. I guess I don't really remember the creepypasta for its character, other than, like, Red and stuff, and Melissa and Zach. I mostly remember the creepypasta for its, like, world building and how each world is fleshed out. And, Face, as well as the TV screens, are basically like temporary distractions. I wouldn't remove him. I just,
Just not without substance.
Yeah.
Personally, because again, this is me talking about my video, what I would have done, because he does seem pointless. Because if you skip out on Face, aside from him giving monsters, there's nothing lost. So I feel like if you made him more like Lynx, I remember someone had a theory that some of the questions he asks are related to the world. Like, is water wet? That's related to dementia. Or is time slipping through your fingers? Time warp. I feel like if those were like before, like in trance, he's asking you, is water wet? Do you like winter? And then you get to those levels, it's like the game is asking you questions to format itself around what you like.
Yeah, I do like that. And I also, at the very least, I do find him interesting in the sense that, maybe he actually knows that Zachary is a human in some way. Because he's like an alien or something, he's trying to figure out everything he can about him. So he's basically just asking all these questions without any feeling of if they make sense or not.
There's a theory that
Go ahead.
NES Godzilla, the pasta, has so much thinking. Some people read into it too much, but there's a theory that Melissa she was pregnant with a child, and that Face is meaning to represent that child because he was never born, and that's why he's asking so many questions.
Oof. That's certainly... Goodness. I've never heard of it. That's a...
I don't like that.
It's a little too weird.
Yeah.
I know that's weird to say for NGC, but I don't jive with it. I mostly just prefer him as, like, he's a weird alien of some kind, and he probably has some kind of connections to the totem poles, where there are just a bunch of weird faces. It would be nice to see someone try to formulate or expand on whatever connection could possibly be there.
Those are all of his cousins. It's that one episode of SpongeBob where Plankton meets all of his family.
Yeah.
I do have one thing, because the thing is, with the original creepypasta, like, a lot of the stuff he knows is inferences. Like, he says his face reactions were randomly generated, and the thing is that he says, these are the only ones I saw while playing, so there could have been a whole lot more faces that the question answers didn't really get to. Because he only makes the inference that Face is the one asking the questions. I feel like that Face was, at least originally, a mouthpiece for the game. And the game directly is asking him the questions. Because there's even a part where he says, I guess the reaction shows what the game creator thought of your answer, as a face is like the mouthpiece for him, or for the game, sorry.
Yeah. Feels like something from Wario Land, in all honesty.
And
And I guess
it's Godzilla Creepypasta, except you're playing as Wario.
it'd be peak. And jumping back to like the whole idea of death, I suppose having the totem poles like after the yes or no, and like having it be, I don't know, it's his family or something, or he has relations, is I guess a bunch of your family gathering around you at your funeral or something like that.
I feel like with the pyramids level, the temple level, and the totem poles, I feel like it's different cultures of death. Like how the White Temple is like, Christianity with like churches and stuff. Like, like what you think of when you think of religion. Pyramids is like the cultural significance of being buried in a giant tomb, and how the totem pole level is where you're spiritually one with the earth when you pass on. The science lab in
the city, the science lab in the city are a lot more high technical.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I will say, though, I do think with all this in mind, it would be an interesting way to interpret that, I don't know, the Chimera is some figure of death. Like, I don't know, maybe he represents the Grim Reaper or something.
Because it does seem like something from like a... Because I remember for history, I had to research spiritual animals. It does seem like something like the Guardian or something,
Yeah.
And also... there is not a lot of chew with Exodus. I keep on calling it Exodus.
It's fine. It was a typo anyway.
Yeah. You know what? Screw it. The Bible world. You know what? Chimera is Jesus Christ. Could you imagine the scene where Melissa, she dies? No, that's Jesus shedding his blood.
Jesus. I'm going to beat you up.
And
the blood of the Lamb.
And coordinates are being rewritten again. Mr. Zanderfruit, say your final words.
And the cross appears when he dies. And the cross appears when he dies, because Jesus died on the cross.
That's why the final chase level is a crucifix and not the demon.
Out of my face.
But that is interesting though, about how it's a cemetery level.
Yeah, and Solomon can't enter there, which it instantly makes sense.
I think also, could you imagine how awkward it would be for like Solomon to like turn around, Red's right there. He's like, what?
Yeah. I do like the gravestone level as as the run stage. On the surface, it seems formulaic. Peaceful level becomes evil. I think, with how it's executed, I think you really definitely feel the same way as Zach, where you just actually start to feel a sort of burning hatred for Red. Yeah. It not only shows how barbaric and violent he is, where he's willing to claw through and devour the Blue Angel, who we already know is Melissa, just to get it closer to you, but how he instantly desecrated and set fire to the whole graveyard. It's so good. And also, special shout out to... The moment he shows up,
everything just goes to hell.
Yep, literally.
Literally, yeah.
Shout out to Goji73's delivery during that stage, because I think he definitely does convey very well that Zach absolutely despises Red at this point. It's so good.
And then he freaking jump scares us.
Yeah.
Jump scares us.
With the Chimera, and then the cemetery level, it's like the final last breath before you go to hell. Where... the Chimera is a desperate amalgamation. You see everything again. They're all desperately trying to kill you so you don't go to the final world. And then the graveyard, you see everything that's died within Red's path. With how big those tombstones are, I feel like those were the giant beings that used to live in the world, in the whole solar system that you explore, like the people from Entropy, Extus, people, And also, with Melissa, with how he says it's like a guardian angel guiding over the graves, again with my Little Big Planet analogy, she was there the entire time, likely years, just protecting these people. And then we come along wanting to see what's after this. And then we see what's after this. Red appears.
Mm-hmm. It's really I really like the run stage of Exodus for all like the reasons stated. Of course, he was already a scary being before. Like, he's already terrifying, and how we knew he killed Melissa.
And also the fact that the Blue Angel is the one other NPC that is like conscious, if you know what I mean. Everything else was like a video game character, you know?
Yeah.
It was Red and the Blue Angel. Those are the two NPCs that gives off they're alive, you know?
Yeah.
Red is like, he's alive and he's like, oh, he's hateful. Now this Blue Angel gives him peace.
Yeah. I think with that, that's a good way to segue into the final world, that being Zenith. I was split on Zenith for a while because while I did understand that it was straight up hell, I sort of also thought that because it is just hell, it didn't really, I don't know, feel as, I don't know, empty or eerie as the other worlds. But I've come around on it. I've come to just accept, yeah, you know what? It's terrible. It's bad. It's just completely no good place.
It really reminds me, have you ever seen the movie The Black Hole by Disney?
I've heard of it.
It reminds, because there's like the ending, it's basically implied that he went to hell. You're just watching the madness unfold in front of you when you're watching that scene. And that's what Zenith feels like.
Like you said, I think it really shows this whole level is meant to represent the other worlds to a degree with a lot of its levels. And I think it's his own. I brought this up hours ago. Already we know this, but I do interpret that Zenith is basically Red's own creation of hell, made in his image. He's made sure it's completely unwelcoming. He has the kaiju waste dump where all of his failed abominations can fight. There's the Blood Lake, there's Mother, there's just all these horrible, horrible things roaming it. Unlike the other worlds, which were like, somewhat threatening, this one feels like it outwardly wants you to die. It wants you to it wants to swallow you whole and never,
it's actively
ever
wanting to hurt you.
Yeah.
This is like the inverse of, because I know this is going to get into the individual level. Also, can I say, I know it's basically a retexture of the original Planet X. It's so creepy how it's just a straight line.
Yeah.
As if you're going through an exhibit.
Yeah. There's only one way. And not to mention the TV level, and while I said I didn't really have much to think about for the TV levels and the face level, those haven't left my mind in Zenith. Not only is the board being a straight line, but also these two, like, I guess once an episode type deals being outwardly bastardized by Red, face being destroyed and only being able to puke blood, and for the TV screen to only display an image of a corpse with a burning fire pit in the background with no music or no animation. It really gets to you. It sells to you instantly that you are not welcome here. And when you get like a new monster like Face did in the previous chapters, Red says no and takes it away from you.
You can't even trust the game anymore. Like, yeah, sure, like in Dementia, it was like forgetting itself. It was still remembering the fact it's a game. Now, it's just straight up showing you an alternate dimension to where even the rules of the game outside of the levels are being broken. Because I imagine that Face and the TV screens, they're not actually physically a part of the planets. You know, they're just like the HUD. Can't even trust that anymore.
Rather than just something screaming in your face, it feels like the type of jump scare where someone just is gripping your shoulder, that kind of thing.
And it's like you can still feel that because you can't trust it anymore.
Yeah.
So now, let's go into each little exhibit and talk about it.
Yep. So the Red Temple, I think from what I've seen, a lot of people don't really seem to talk about this level, but I still think it's pretty good. I think it instantly lays...
As an intro level, it's awesome.
As a level, it lays the foundation for what Zenith is going to be like. And it also brings a lot of things back from other worlds to a degree. It brings back the unforgiving temple faces, but this time their eyes glow. The entropy raptors from the Dark Temple are back and in full visibility. From there, it breaks off into its own thing, distinct from the other levels.
Almost like as if it's a hellish version of the Blue Temple, where with the Blue Temple, it's like an abandoned religious place. Now it's like something far worse from that, and it's been turned to evil. And now it's just demons groaning.
Yeah.
And
also, I think Oh, you go ahead. I got something to say later.
Aspect of the fact that you're going down, you're descending to even worse aspects of Zenith.
Which also makes sense because here, like, the further you go down, it actually becomes more different from the temple, which was initially just a straight line. There's also another thing I noticed is, in a way, Zenith is like the other worlds, where it does feel alive. There are like no glimpses, goodness, or even neutralness. Like with those little horrible, like almost humanoid creatures that crawl on the walls and the ground, and I also imagine, or what he does to his human victims. Like maybe he claimed more people before or after Melissa, but because he couldn't take over their body as a host, which is why he killed Melissa, he simply repurposed them as those little horrible beasts to roam around his temple. Which would also make sense because this is the same level where the Red Angel appears.
The end is a boss fight to where you have the danger of falling into the void below.
Yeah.
Where it's like, because, I mean, in the game, in the original game, there was a void, like, that's space background, but that's not really acknowledged. But here it is. It's like, bro, you're literally gonna be in the nothingness that you've always been surrounded in.
Mm-hmm. And next, we have the kill level, which man, I like this level because it's, at this point, it's difficult to make this sound like a compliment, but this actually doesn't feel like reality anymore. An entire level founded on just the innate desire to kill.
Yeah, it's almost like as if you have to go inside Red and you're seeing what his thoughts are. Because there was a theory that the meat level with inside his stomach, everything is eaten. That's why everything looks so, like, gored, is because it's digested.
Mm-hmm. Oh, man. Not to mention, like, all the hybrid monsters across the stage, which I do think were probably failed attempts at Red making the not monsters.
It's like as if after you kill all of the monsters, they end up here and they get mutated.
Yeah.
And they're just in agony.
I don't know if this is an official name, but I do think people actually call this the recycler level.
Yeah, I guess. I think it's just called the kill level.
Yeah, probably. But I also enjoy how some of these seem like they can function fine, like the Biollante Mechagodzilla Titanosaurus thing and Kumongo Mogira function. There are some which are just like definitely not meant to work, like the Gorosaurus that's just two heads and a tail, and also the headless Gigans.
It's like they're crawling.
Oh man, and I forgot about the flying Hedoras. It's so terrible. And of course, the hybrid monster. Ooh, boy.
Like body horror stuff. And I imagine in the kill level, all the monsters are just seamlessly just angry. When they die, they mutated. They couldn't even have the death of being evaporated. Like how, like, what seemed like to happen to, like, Gazora or Mogira. No, they just got sent here and they got mutilated. The eeriest fact is the fact that when the hybrid monster dies, everything falls. It's not like in the game, you kill a turret, it explodes, it's gone. No, it's falling into a void. And you have that feeling that it still exists. It's just a pile of dust, you know?
It's like you're destroying Zenith more and more, which is probably a good thing, but even still, like, the sheer emptiness is there.
I imagine that in the Red Temple, the Red Angel was spawning all those creatures, and that it was just following you throughout. Just you couldn't see it. It's just empty.
Yep. Alright. The Blood Lake. I think I might actually not have much to say about this level, but I do actually really like the aesthetic of it. Having these weird purple brambles being a lake. I imagine this is the only, like, type of fauna that can grow in Zenith naturally.
I feel like as if you were to visualize Zenith as a planet, I feel like most of the planet is comprised of one gigantic pit that goes inside.
Yeah.
And the fauna around the pit is the Blood Lakes.
It's it's really, I do like the one part where, even though it is a trope for this to happen, where Zack is crawling through the top of the lake as Anguirus, but then all these bodies that were seemingly at the top just start jumping him and trying to attack him.
Yeah, it's like they're fighting to survive.
Yep.
Okay, like in Trance, the Green Temple, there's no reason why the horse bat and the weird ghost fetus thing wants to kill you. But in this one, it's like they're hungry. They're starving. Yeah. I love the beginning so much, where it's those weird bat things are like hawking at you. They're actual live creatures, and you just disturb them.
Yeah, this is like the nature of Zenith. It's wildlife.
Yeah.
And then there's Bobo, aka Mother, but I know he's called Bobo. Mother is pretty freaky, all things considered. I actually don't know what to say about Bobo, but I mean, I guess his design is pretty cool. It kind of looks like a bag over his head with a weird psycho clown makeup or something. I don't know.
I guess she cheated on her husband with a clown, and he decided to hang
Yeah.
her for that. Because, again, this is me coming up with theories. It feels like as if this is the most stable, as in there's like an ecosystem. In Blood Lakes, it's like an actual ecosystem with even a predator, the black goblin shark. It feels like as if it's the most violent, where these are beings actively hunting and killing each other. Anyway, what do you want to say about meat level?
The meat level. I know some people might be put off by the completely different style, but I like it. And I also like how Cosby Daff was able to take these designs very far. Little worm creatures that sprout out from the ground. This weird flying thing that's got like these two claws.
I always thought those were like Star Wars blasters, and you like blasted them.
Yeah, yeah. I think I actually had the idea for an organic level enemy that I was going to use in Chaos Pasta, like it was a leftover from Zenith, where basically it would constantly regenerate its body, but also try to take off parts of it, where it would constantly split open its chest to like shoot part of its rib cage at you or something like that.
I feel like with my pit analogy, this would be like really deep into the pit. Zenith itself is a living organism, and you see its organs and stuff.
Yeah.
Because I remember there is some theory that the organic level was like birthing enemies. Like, that's a good kind of horror. Organically,
fits.
Regurgitating these weird dogs and stuff.
It consumes things and then spits them out, because we can see in one of the screenshots that the stage actually does try to eat Godzilla by like grabbing his leg.
I feel like within the pit, the top layer would be the kill stage, and then way at the bottom is the organic level, where after everything fell from the kill stage, they got digested and regurgitated as like these weird half-melted dogs and stuff. Honestly, out of all the fauna of Zenith, the organic fauna looks the most unhealthiest, the most barely living creatures.
Yeah, you could say this about any of the creatures, but actively, I don't think any of these things want to be alive right now.
As if it's weird how Cosby Daff was able to give them such life, like the tapeworm things, where it's like they're smiling at Godzilla.
Yeah, there's an eye you can see there.
Yeah. You notice how you go deeper within the organic level?
Yeah.
You're going deeper into the bowels of the beast. I feel like the organic level is an inverted feeling of the force level. Where in the force level of entropy, it was beautiful in a way. He was watching fauna interact with each other. It's like a healthy ecosystem, you know? Here, the most disgusting aspects to where it's literally digested animals trying to exist. It's so eerie, you know? So, yeah. Is there anything else you want to say?
No, I think we can move on to straight up hell now.
Yeah.
Because I think that explains the fire pit stage pretty well. Like, it's exactly what you'd expect from Zenith. You've got these little, almost chimera look-like creatures with whips that I assume are scalding hot, because I just look at them. There's the stuff coming out of the lava. I mean, they're still horrifying and demonic, but I imagine some of these are actually like some of Red's minions. I at least imagine that the whipping like demons work under him directly.
I know how throughout this we've described fauna as if it's like our kind of reality living, but this is as in hell, where you don't have to live. It's a spiritual thing.
Yeah.
Those whipping demons, they don't need to eat or anything. They're just servants. They just exist.
So bringing up Firebrand, basically the mini boss of the stage, who was like huge. There's something to him that's very appealing to me, because he's like the end result of the stage. There's just a bunch of these demons who just serve Red. And like Solomon, it happens to have a lot of fur and hair and almost, and it almost makes me wonder if it was Red's attempt at trying to replace Solomon after he betrayed him.
The breakup was really rough for Red.
Yeah. You don't like killing teenage girls? Why did I even marry you?
Why does that make me think of the Saddam Hussein insane in South Park? Someone
Yeah.
needs to make a Photoshop of that where it's Red and Solomon in bed.
Yeah. I gotta remember. I know Firebrand is a reference to something. I know that there's the Ghosts and Goblins Demon's Crest character called Firebrand, but man, I can't remember. All right. So, the monster bosses of Zenith. Not gonna lie, I'm a little split on them. I completely understand the choices here, Destroya and Mecha King Ghidorah, but even if they are technically very terrifying Godzilla monsters, I feel like Cosby could have gone a little further with these because at the end of the day, they are just like straight up Godzilla references. They kind of feel unusually comforting, which maybe that was the intention. But I think it would be interesting to see some part where they'd be affected by the stages in some way.
If he put Ghidorah as like the last kaiju, the last experience of this game before he has to face the ultimate nightmare of it, I feel like that would have hit a little bit harder. And there's like a moment of silence a little bit. And then the final stage.
I do have to admit, Red has the most boss. It has the coolest intro ever, where the stage is nothing, his eyes fade in, and then he fades in. That's cool.
Every single time I always click off when the boss fight happens.
Yeah.
I utterly, because the thing is, Cosby, this is a genius writing and genius design with the graphics. I mentioned this in my video. Him paralyzing Zachary and making him feel the pain that's been inflicted on his monsters. I feel like that's just a cheap way of suspense.
Yeah. I feel like it's not extreme enough. How I would do it, an intellectual, who I will probably not ever match up to Cosby, is have it so that Red instantly rips Zach's eye out, and then Zach loses his depth perception.
He pops out the TV screen. He's like hyper realistic. But like, well, I'm this is ripping off what Fish Stick on a Stick says, and I also put it in my own rewrite. He's super OP, but if he dies, he won't see the ending of the game, and thus there won't be an explanation of what the frick this is about. Because what's kept him pushing on, despite the fact that it's terrifying with Red, it's actively mocked him, is the fact that he wants to get to the ending to see if there's an explanation behind this, to see what is at the end of this whole experience. And if Red just one hit kills him, then he's not going to get that, and that's going to haunt him for a long time because it's been so personal to him.
If Zach didn't die by losing, Red would probably cackle. Zach has to live with the fact that he let Red live. He's gonna come after Earth sooner or later.
Zachary hears a knock at his door. He opens it. It's Red.
He
has a shopping bag.
I brought you breakfast. A knuckle sandwich.
Decks him in the face. He doesn't like kill him or tear him apart. He just beats him to death.
Yeah.
Gets a newspaper and starts whacking him upside the head.
Yeah.
Instead of killing him, he makes him go into his dining room, makes him breakfast, and talks about how he's going to destroy the world.
Oh, man. It's like that one Thanos scene. Thanos visits this guy every day for his birthday or something.
I know that'd be cheesy as hell because like it's a creepypasta OC, but that would be sick, honestly.
Admittedly, I don't really have that much to say on the finale. I understand why you dislike it. I personally tolerate it, but I will admit a lot of the battle itself is just kind of noise to me. Cosby did the best he could, I'm sure. It's just a lot of it's just hitting, punch, punch, ouch. Oh no, my monsters died. Oh my fastballs.
Oh, my balls!
And my girlfriend's back. She's gonna save me. She's gonna give me Acacius, which is a good way, which is admittedly a fine enough way to bring back that monster. And then Acacius kills Red, cause I mean, of fucking course he did.
The sprite work is honestly what saves the ending, honestly.
Yeah, I really like, I guess not really the animation, but like the part where Red dies, how he just completely, it fades into dust in the fire pit, slowly flickers out. And people still think he's going to come back and replay?
Because it's a different iteration. But,
yeah.
It's just... this is cheesy, because it's like, oh, with the power of friendship and love will kill them.
Yeah. I could have done without the part where Melissa brought the monsters and face back. I kind of like the ending, but it's a little too much.
See, when I was doing my rewrite, I kind of considered him
Yeah.
winning. Because would it be more substantial if instead of him, oh, all my questions are answered, my questions are gone, then he tries to play it again, and it's normal?
Yeah. I think I actually remember having an idea for a similar thing in my creepypasta where there was an old version of Chaos Pasta or whatever. When James defeats the final antagonist, the game doesn't end immediately. He did like defeat the main antagonist, but like there's nobody there to congratulate him. All he can do is really just gaze upon how all of the worlds, I don't know. It feels like there was like a sort of a soberingness that was kind of missing from the ending of NGC.
That's roughly how the ending of mine went. Basically, what happened was after Godzilla kills Null. By the way, he doesn't do that giant transformation. He's just normal red. He screams, and then it flashes all the screenshots showing the entire adventure, and there's a girl face screaming at him. Like, oh my god, he's trying to show Melissa to like freak Zachary out, and then it cuts to the board, and it's just Godzilla in the void. And that's all that the screen will show. And I was just thinking about that just then when you were talking about that.
Again, I want to say I don't hate the ending. To a degree, I actually do really like Acacius and like the nature of the Agelums, where they're basically like an anti-cheat for the cartridge. Even if the cartridge is like a very bizarre and weird entity, it still has a moral code. But it like in isolation, I really like that idea. But in terms of like the original NGC ending, it's kind of just noise. And I really hope that issue is not also in replay.
I was looking at the server also, and they were like talking about it because how people give it too much slack. I mean, personally, I feel like I wouldn't say deserves, but I don't think it. I don't like the ending at all. Like it doesn't really soothe the ear right because the entire pasta is full of food for thought. Eerie images to where you could sit there and just imagine it for hours, like how I do with the organic level, just imagining how it's barely living creatures just melting.
And with the sequel, it's just a weird out of place moment where this explains everything. I get it now.
And it's just so happy. It's just so joyful, you know. Like, yeah, of course it's a happy ending.
You can turn it down just a bit.
Yeah, like I know the epilogue does that, but I feel like that should have been there for like the actual final chapter, except for just being crammed into the epilogue, you know.
Yeah.
But just having him reflect on everything he saw, even if there's a good ending, there's still some underlying negativeness to it because okay, imagine this. You play a video game. It's weird. It brings up personal stuff, and there's even a creature in there that mocks your personal stuff, and then you kill it. You beat the game. What really is there? Because there wasn't like an explanation behind it. You basically know what it is. There's no explaining. It's alive. But like, how do you just move on from that? You need to sit down and think about it, you know? I'm glad that there was that in the original pasta. Like in the epilogue, there's even that beautiful scene where he's like by the lake. He's going to throw the cartridge in, but then he's thinking about how, what if this was how she's free? It's his way of having closure. Maybe she never was in the cartridge. Yeah. This is his way of processing it.
Yeah. I know we're going to wait a bit before we get to replay, but I don't know if you've seen it, but like the Alkali Part 1 conversation between Zach and Carl, I think that's really, really good. Like how he actually says he couldn't bring myself to destroy it because of how he thinks about it, but he just wanted to get rid of it. And how Carl even straight up asks Zach, do you feel that playing through the game was a mistake for you? Zach, to a degree, just doesn't even know.
You know how in the original game it was like doing that scrolling?
Yeah.
Could you imagine saying about what happened to Zenith and what's happening to all the worlds?
Yeah.
But there's one more thing we have to discuss. The alternate ending. It turns out that he was actually John Madden. It was entirely utterly surprising, man.
Yeah. I also find it really interesting how It's sort of a symbolic type of thing, where Godzilla was your puppet, but now he truly is your puppet, and you must use it to defeat Red, which makes a lot of sense when you think about it, because I guess it's a thematic thing. Puppets aren't entirely bad. They can be used to do good. Just because you're under control doesn't mean you can be capable of being used for good.
With John Madden, people idolize sports. Between a tool with Zolta and something really greatly idolized like John Madden. He's a very popular guy in football. You have these two different ideologies.
With how Zachary borked the game, oh man, I suppose it does make sense.
It truly shows about how this entire time it was a living, breathing thing because of how it couldn't handle the immense pressure of John Madden and Zolta utterly fighting because we only have one single screenshot. That shows that Zachary did not have any time to take any more pictures of it because it was so intense that it probably didn't even register. It probably was so crazy that there's probably even more of the screenshot that we barely got.
I guess I win. That leaves it to the viewer's interpretation. I guess I win. We don't know if he actually did.
Because the thing is that with Replay confirming that this is a view to alternate reality, John Madden was a real person. John Madden might be coming for our protagonist.
If you'll remember, all the way back then, Moonbase Alpha simulates what real astronauts do. We see that these astronauts talk about him a lot. But maybe when our friend Neil Armstrong was on the moon, maybe he saw John Madden. Great story, Cosby Daff.
In all seriousness, this actually was like a freaking awesome story, and I love it to bits.
Yeah, I love it too. I don't know why I initially wrote it off, because watching it again, it genuinely made me surprised at how good the story actually was. Because, when I was younger, I was a creepypasta kid. As humiliated as I am to admit it, I watched lost episode creepypastas. And one thing I didn't realize at the time is how not a lot of them actually stuck with me. With NGC, it was like an entirely different deal entirely, where this one was just full. It feels so weird that it took me so long to learn about it because it's so good.
It's also the fact that it spawned like a mini fandom. There's the Discord server for the official game, which, by the way, there's a third coming of it. Don't worry, they're still trying to make it. But also with people making fan made content, Replay is unfinished, so people made their own chapters. And people making their own fan stories, like how you have the Chaos Pasta and Mr. Scary Pasta, which I love to death so much.
Another thing that benefits NGC as a derivative work is that it's also very versatile because, for one, you're in space. You can just jump from planet to planet. You can do a lot with that. And there's also giant monsters. You can do a lot with that too. You can also do a lot with the fact that the cartridge sort of establishes a personal connection between you and the player. There's genuinely a lot for you to work with. Enough where you can do some really, really crazy stuff with the tools you're given.
There is just so much stuff to chew on with intricate details and design choices where there is so much character. You can look at a creature and theorize about it. There is even so much stuff that people don't even realize. When I was editing the video, I overlaid the Unforgiving Cold Temple and the Winter segment on top of each other, where you see the dead deer below and the screaming faces on top, almost as if it shows their souls being trapped within that temple.
It's genuinely so well crafted, but it's hard to believe that this just started off as just a simple thing Cosby was just throwing together, when in reality it's like a mini type of universe type deal. I've said too many good things about it, and I will never stop, because I think genuinely this is just an amazing piece of media.
If there was no sprite work at all, and he was just describing it, it wouldn't be the same. But he went the extra mile to give it that character.
If NGC were the average creepypasta, Zenith would be the only world, and most people would actually turn a blind eye to it. Because, it's basically what you'd expect from, creepypasta cliches. It's got a red, bloody version, but the fact these cliches are actually made special in NGC because it was built up across the course of the story, and to finally have everything just go to hell as like the finale, I think that's amazing. It was probably completely accidental, but it's like amazing.
It's a journey.
Yeah. I've never agreed with the fact that one of its flaws is that it's too long.
No.
The sequel to Sonic EXE is like twice as long as NGC, and people don't give a
I think it's because no one really knows that there's an official sequel.
That's true. But still, I think the whole point of NGC is that it doesn't do things fast. It doesn't just try to throw you into things. It actively tries to like keep you immersed in its world that it's creating and creep you out with it. And I think the length is actually somewhat justified.
I know this may seem ridiculous, but it reminds me of the Godfather series, where they are notorious for being 2 almost 3 hour long films, but that's because of the fact that it's using all that time to be really immersed with this family, this journey throughout time from the 40s to the late 90s. NES Godzilla is the same way, where you're being immersed with this guy going through an adventure.
Yeah.
When I eventually do the rewrite, because I do think there is some weird pacing issues here and there. Like,
I know that at the very least, all the chapters were made over a course of time, but Exodus feels like it had even less development time than Pathos. It's still a good chapter, don't get me wrong. That's just the chapter where I feel like it's the most incongruent. Needs a little bit of work.
But all in all, this was a great little adventure we went on today.
I'm glad I could finally talk about why I love this story so much. I think 4 years ago I wanted to actually make a video about it when I was still working on like the first 3 chapters of Chaos Pasta, but I never did it because I was too lazy. Some things never change, but I'm happy that I was able to talk to this with you and the others, actually discuss why it's such a special and amazing story.
And me too.
It is weird for me to have this sort of experience because, like, 4 years ago, the NGC sphere, I was nobody. I worked at a Denny's. They paid me in nickels. It's so weird to see now that I actually like get to be on something like this. This is what I've wanted to do for a while.
I think it's kind of cool that I got to actually do this podcast episode with you and Royal, because, like, I feel honored that I get to share my unhealthy hyperfixation on the story with someone else who feels the same. You know, maybe if this podcast takes off because of how small the NES sphere is, I bet this is going to get like a couple thousand views. I'll make a video where I speedrun explaining the entire pasta as fast as I can. But, with all that said, this was an excellent journey with recapping the pasta and just the general vibe around it.
I had the time of my life. I've mentioned it already, but like I've had a lot of time in my 4 years and being in this fan base to think about how much I love this story. I don't think I've ever faltered once, but I've never really had a medium in which I can properly like dispense all of it in one place. So it was like absolutely amazing to be able to do that here.
And I'm glad to have someone as big as you in the fandom on here, so I'm glad I got to share it with you.
Yeah, very nice. I'm glad I've stuck around and love this pasta for as long as I have. And I hope more people can feel the same about it the way we do. Hopefully.
I hope that this episode has given you all the same feeling. So, this will be part 1 of our journey across the 2 realms of the pastas. In the next part, whenever we do it, next week, next month, next decade, I don't know, will be of the replay, which that is a totally different beast. So we're going to split it up. And also the fact that Royal had to leave, so we'll have to split this up. We might pull a replay, just not make a follow-up. It's just forever lingering.
There's like a fan continuation that only uses TTS of our voices.
I think that Zachary is a girl.
I think I own the big drink.
But I'll see you guys later. Drink your milk.
See ya.
Goodbye.
Oh yeah! The Macho Man's gonna eat your ass!